The storm came without warning. Dark clouds covered the sky above the abandoned research zone, and strong winds shook the old metal towers like they were made of paper. Daniel watched from inside his small shelter as lightning flashed again and again across the horizon. The colony had many dangerous storms, but this one felt different. The air felt heavy, almost electric. Daniel stayed awake most of the night, listening to metal breaking somewhere in the distance. By morning, the storm was gone. The world outside looked damaged and silent. Broken panels lay across the ground, and one of the old research towers had collapsed near the hills. Daniel grabbed his tools and went outside to check the damage. He lived alone, so fixing things quickly meant survival. As he walked closer to the fallen tower, he noticed something strange. The ground was cracked in a wide circle, as if something very heavy had fallen from the sky. Burn marks covered the soil. The air still smelled like heat and metal. Daniel slowed down. Something was there. At first, he thought it was a piece of wreckage. Then it moved. Daniel froze. Between the broken metal beams lay a woman, but she was enormous, at least 3 times his size. Her body was partly covered by torn fabric made from unknown material. Long silver hair spread across the dirt, mixed with ash and rainwater. She was injured. Deep cuts marked her arms, and faint glowing lines moved slowly under her skin, fading in and out like weak light. Her breathing was slow and painful. Daniel's first instinct was to run. Nothing this large should exist on a forgotten colony planet. And if she woke up angry, he would not survive. But she didn't look dangerous. She looked exhausted. Carefully, Daniel stepped closer. He kept his distance, watching for any sudden movement. The giant woman's eyes slowly opened. They were bright, unfamiliar, and filled with confusion. For a moment, both of them simply stared at each other. She tried to move, but pain stopped her. A quiet sound escaped her throat, more frustration than anger. Daniel raised his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly, even though he knew she might not understand. The giant woman watched him carefully. Her eyes moved from his face to the tools in his hands, then back again. She looked surprised, as if she expected fear or attack. Daniel noticed metal fragments stuck near her shoulder. Pieces of broken equipment had cut into her skin during the fall. If they stayed there, the wounds would get worse. He hesitated. Helping her was dangerous, but leaving her like this felt wrong. Slowly, he climbed onto a broken beam and reached the wound. The giant woman tensed at first, but she did not stop him. She only watched, breathing slowly as he removed the metal pieces and cleaned the injury with water. Minutes passed in silence. When he finished, she looked less tense. The glowing lines under her skin became softer, calmer. Daniel stepped back and let out a nervous laugh. "You know, you're actually very beautiful. Even like this." He didn't mean anything serious. It was just something to break the tension. But her reaction surprised him. She became very still. Her expression changed. Not angry, not shy, thinking. Her eyes studied him carefully now, as if seeing him differently for the first time. Then she smiled slightly. "Human," she said slowly, her voice deep but gentle. "You are kinder than expected." Daniel blinked in surprise. She understood him. Before he could reply, a faint sound came from the sky. Both of them looked up. High above the clouds, small lights moved silently. Too controlled to be meteors. Too steady to be satellites. Ships. Scanning lights passed across the land for only a moment before disappearing again. The giant woman's smile faded instantly. Fear replaced it. She looked back at Daniel, and for the first time, he saw something hidden behind her calm face. Calculation, as if she had been waiting for something. Or someone. "They search," she said quietly. Daniel frowned. "Who?" The giant woman looked toward the sky again, her voice softer now. "My people and not my people." Daniel felt a cold feeling in his chest. He suddenly realized something important. Maybe finding her was not an accident, and maybe helping her had already made him part of a plan he did not understand yet. Far above them, the lights in the sky turned and began moving closer. The lights in the sky disappeared after a few minutes, but Daniel could not forget them. He stood near the broken tower, watching the clouds long after they were gone. Something was searching the planet, and he had a feeling it was connected to the giant woman. She was quieter now. Daniel helped her move away from the open area before night came. It took time. Even injured, she was heavy enough to shake the ground with each step. They stopped near Daniel's shelter, hidden between old machines and rock walls that blocked long-distance scanners. The giant woman sat carefully on the ground, trying not to damage anything around her. "My name, Sarah," she said slowly, touching her chest. "Daniel," he replied. She repeated his name softly, as if memorizing it. Sarah watched everything closely, the shelter, the tools, the solar panels, even the way Daniel moved while working. Her eyes missed nothing. At first, Daniel thought she was just curious. But after a while, it began to feel like she was studying him. That feeling made him uneasy. Still, she was injured, and he could not ignore that. Daniel brought water and food. Sarah accepted carefully, watching him the whole time. "You help without trade?" she asked. Daniel shrugged. "You needed help." She looked confused by that answer. That night, Daniel tried to sleep, but the silence felt wrong. The storm had passed, yet the air felt tense. Every small sound outside made him wake up. At some point, he heard a voice. Soft, quiet, speaking in a language he did not understand. Daniel slowly opened his eyes. The sound came from outside. He moved carefully to the door and looked through a small crack. Sarah was awake. She sat under the moonlight, her head slightly lowered, speaking quietly. Her voice sounded calm, controlled, very different from the weak and injured woman he had helped earlier. She was not afraid. She sounded confident. Daniel could not understand the words, but he noticed something else. A faint light moved under her skin again, stronger than before, like energy returning to her body. Then she suddenly stopped speaking. Her head turned slightly toward the shelter. Daniel stepped back quickly, his heart beating fast. He was sure she had heard him. A few seconds later, everything went silent again. The next morning, Sarah acted as if nothing had happened. She spoke slowly, asking simple questions. How many humans lived on the planet? Were there cities nearby? How did humans communicate across space? Daniel answered carefully, but now he paid more attention. Her questions were not random. They were strategic. Later that day, a small drone passed high above the clouds. It did not attack, only scan the land before moving away. Sarah watched it disappear, her expression unreadable. "They searched for me," she said. Daniel nodded slowly, but something did not feel right anymore. If she was only hiding, why did she sound so calm at night? In the evening, Daniel walked back to the crash site to collect supplies. While searching through the broken metal, he found something strange buried under the dirt. A small device. It was not damaged. The surface was smooth, still warm, and a faint light blinked slowly at its center. A signal beacon. Daniel stared at it, confusion turning into concern. This was not something that survived a crash by accident. It looked placed, not lost. Carefully, he covered it again and returned to the shelter. Sarah was waiting outside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You found something," she said quietly. It was not a question. Daniel felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "What is it?" Sarah looked at him for a long time before answering. "Something I did not tell you." The wind moved softly through the broken towers behind them. Far above, another faint light appeared in the sky. Closer this time, Daniel realized the truth was finally coming, and he was not sure he wanted to hear it. The evening air felt colder than usual. Daniel stood a few steps away from Sarah, waiting for her to speak. The small blinking beacon he found earlier stayed in his mind. It was not broken. It was active. That meant someone was still receiving its signal. Sarah looked toward the sky before speaking again. "I did not lie," she said slowly, "but I did not tell everything." Daniel crossed his arms. "Then start now." For a moment, she said nothing. The glowing lines under her skin moved softly, like light flowing through water. She looked tired but not weak anymore. Her strength was returning. "I was injured," she continued. "That part is true. I escaped from my people, but I was not only running." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Sarah pointed toward the hills where he had found her. The fall was planned, a controlled crash, a signal sent after landing. Daniel's mind connected the pieces immediately. The beacon, he said quietly. Sera no dead. Silence filled the space between them. My kind is used for first contact, she explained. We arrive alone, injured, vulnerable. Locals help us. We learn the area, learn the people. When fleet arrives, resistance is small. Daniel stared at her, anger slowly rising. So, I was just part of the plan? Sarah did not answer immediately. Yes, she said finally. At first, the words hit harder than he expected. Daniel turned away, running a hand through his hair. He felt foolish. Of course it was too easy. A giant alien falling from the sky, needing help. He should have known something was wrong. Behind him, Sarah spoke again, her voice quieter now. But something changed. Daniel did not turn around. Humans were described as fearful, she said. Self-protective. Untrusting. You were not. Daniel laughed bitterly. That was my mistake. Sarah shook her head slowly. No, that was mine. A loud sound echoed across the sky. Both of them looked up. A bright line of light moved through the clouds before disappearing again. The fleet was getting closer. The beacon called them, Sarah said. They will arrive soon. Daniel's anger faded, replaced by worry. If ships were coming, this was no longer just about him. Small settlements still existed on the planet. People who had no idea what was coming. Why tell me now, he asked. Sarah looked at her hands. For someone so large and powerful, she suddenly looked uncertain. Because I do not know if I want to finish the mission. Daniel turned back toward her, surprised. My people believe strength is control, she said. But you help someone who could crush you. No worth. No safety. I do not understand this. Daniel sighed. It's not complicated. Someone was hurt. Sarah watched him closely, as if trying to understand something impossible. That night, the beacon activated fully. A beam of light shot silently into the sky, invisible to normal eyes, but clear to orbiting ships. Daniel saw the glow reflecting faintly on Sarah's skin. They are here, she said. Far above, several new lights appeared, larger this time, moving slowly into position. Daniel felt fear, but also clarity. What happens now, he asked. Sera hésitated. They expect me to prepare the area. Gain trust. Make landing easy. Daniel nodded slowly. And will you? Sarah did not answer. Instead, she looked toward the small shelter Daniel had built. The repaired walls. The tools carefully arranged. The simple life he protected every day. For the first time, her expression showed conflict. I was sent to use you, she said quietly. But you changed the outcome. Daniel looked back at the sky. The ships were closer now, their lights steady and patient. He realized something important at that moment. The danger was not coming anymore. It had already arrived, and whatever Sarah decided next would decide the future of the entire colony. The night sky no longer looked empty. Large shadows moved above the clouds, slow and silent. The fleet had arrived. Their lights stayed hidden most of the time, but sometimes the clouds flashed, showing the shape of something massive waiting in orbit. Daniel stood outside his shelter, watching the sky. He felt small, but strangely calm. Running was no longer an option. The only thing left was deciding what kind of person he wanted to be when everything ended. Behind him, Sarah stood quietly. They are waiting for my signal, she said. Daniel nodded. And if you don't send it? Sarah looked toward the sky again. Then they assume resistance. They remove the problem. Daniel understood what that meant. The colony, the research zones, anyone still living on the planet, all of it could disappear in minutes. For the first time since they met, silence felt heavy between them. You should leave, Sarah said softly. Hide somewhere far away. Daniel shook his head. This is my home. Sera honnête. You cannot fight them. I know, Daniel replied. That doesn't mean I help them. Those words stayed in the air. Sarah watched him carefully, as if trying to understand why he was not angry, why he was not begging her to save him. You trusted me, she said quietly. I used that. Daniel looked at her. Yeah, you did. She lowered her eyes. But I chose to help, he continued. That part was my decision. Sarah looked surprised. Daniel sighed and sat down on a broken crate. You don't owe me anything. If you want to go back to them, go. I won't stop you. But I won't help take this place either. For the first time, Sarah looked uncertain. Her entire life had been simple. Orders, missions, success or failure. She had never been given a choice before. Now she had one, and it frightened her more than the fleet above. A sudden sound echoed from the sky. A deep voice, cold and artificial, filled the air around them. Unisura. Mission delay detected. Prepare landing zone immediately. Sarah's body stiffened. The voice was not asking. It was commanding. Daniel felt the ground vibrate slightly as one of the ships lowered position. A beam of light touched the distant hills, scanning the surface. They will not wait long, Sarah said. Daniel stood up slowly. His mind was already working. Humans were weaker than most alien species, but they survived by adapting. Maybe they don't need to fight, he said. Sarah looked at him. What do you mean? Daniel pointed toward the old research towers. Those transmitters still work. Weakly, but enough. Understanding slowly appeared in Sarah's eyes. You want to send message? Daniel nodded. If others know what they're doing here, this stops being a quiet mission. Empires like control. They did not like witnesses. Sera hésitated. Helping him would mean disobeying direct orders. It would mean losing her place among her own people. Above them, the voice returned. Final warning. Prepare for extraction. Daniel walked toward the transmitter station without looking back. He expected her to stop him. She didn't. Instead, heavy footsteps followed behind him. Inside the old station, dust covered everything. Daniel powered the system using emergency batteries. Screens flickered to life one by one. What will you send? Sarah asked quietly. The truth, Daniel replied. He uploaded recordings, images of her injuries, the beacon, the command messages from orbit. Everything. The signal shot into space, weak but spreading. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the fleet above stopped moving. The scanning beams disappeared. Sarah looked up, surprised. They are thinking. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Yeah, humans are good at that. But the silence did not feel safe. Because now Sarah's people knew she had chosen a side. And there was no going back. The night stayed quiet after the signal was sent. Daniel and Sarah stood outside the old transmitter station, both watching the sky. The fleet remained in orbit, but nothing moved. No attack came. No new orders echoed through the air. The silence felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. Sera distant carefully. Her senses were stronger than Daniel's. She could hear distant engine vibrations far above the clouds. They are arguing, she said softly. Daniel looked at her. Arguing? Yes. This mission was supposed to be hidden. Now others are watching. Daniel nodded slowly. That was the plan. Empires were powerful when nobody knew what they were doing. But once the truth spread, every action became risky. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, the sky changed. One by one, the lights in orbit began to move away from the planet. The massive shadow above the clouds slowly faded as the ships turned and left. Daniel exhaled deeply. He had not realized how tense his body was until that moment. They're leaving, he said. Sarah stared at the sky, disbelief in her eyes. They do not retreat often. But they don't want attention, Daniel replied. Not today. For the first time since her arrival, Sarah looked truly free. The next few days were calm. No ships returned. No drones appeared. The forest slowly came back to life. Wind moved through broken towers, and the colony felt quiet again. Daniel repaired what he could. The transmitter was burned out after the broadcast, and parts of his shelter still needed work. Life returned to simple routines, fixing machines, collecting water, surviving one day at a time. Sarah helped silently. She lifted heavy metal pieces and cleared damaged paths. But Daniel noticed something had changed in her. She moved more carefully now, as if she was choosing every action instead of following orders. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, Sarah stood at the edge of the clearing. I cannot stay, she said. Daniel already knew. If I remain, they may return, she continued. And next time, they will not leave. Daniel nodded. Yeah, I figured. There was no anger between them now, only understanding. Sarah knelt down, so her eyes were level with his. For someone so powerful, her voice sounded gentle. My mission was to use you, she said honestly. Your kindness made that impossible. Daniel smiled faintly. Guess humans are bad at being predictable. Sarah almost smiled at that. You changed my decision, she said. My people believe strength means control. You showed something else. Daniel shrugged. Sometimes helping someone is enough. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved softly through the grass. Then Sarah stood up and turned toward the open land beyond the forest. I will go far from here, she said, so this place stays safe. Daniel watched as she began to walk away. Each step carried her farther into the distance until her large figure disappeared behind the hills. The colony felt empty again. Months passed. Life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be on a forgotten planet. The story of the broadcast spread slowly across nearby systems. Some called it rebellion. Others called it courage. Daniel ignored all of it. One evening, while repairing a solar panel, the ground shook again. He froze. Heavy footsteps approached from the forest. Daniel turned, ready for trouble. Instead, a familiar figure stepped into the clearing. Sarah looked different now. Stronger. Calm. No fear in her eyes. No hidden mission behind her smile. I told others, she said. There's a place where humans helped instead of feared. Daniel laughed softly. So you came back. Sera no dead. Not as a weapon. She looked toward the sky, then back at him. As a protector. Daniel looked up as well. The sky was empty this time. Peaceful. And he understood something important. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. Humans were dangerous because they could change the choices of others. And sometimes that was stronger than any empire.